Hello everybody and welcome back to another Torchwood Big Finish audio drama review. In today's review I'm going to be taking a look at the March 2021 release as a part of the Torchwood main range. It is of course Lease of Life as written by Adam Lamont, featuring Dr. Owen Harper as portrayed by Bern Gorman. This release is available to order now on the Big Finish website. The physical CD is £14.99 and the download is £12.99. There is also additional story details on Big Finish website, as well as a trailer that can be listened to. Now, something that I would like to note immediately, because this is a Torchwood review, this episode does of course contain adult material, including some strong language, as well as some rather gruesome scenes. Therefore, this release is not suitable for younger listeners. Something that I would also like to mention, of course, on the Big Finish website there are a number of bundles available, meaning that you can buy multiple releases at once, and the Torchwood main range is a really good opportunity to be able to listen to some rather unusual and different stories. Of course, each release is in fact an individual one, meaning that there's no plot arcs that connect all the stories together. Therefore, this range is very much one of those lines that you can pick and mix with stories and characters that interest you. So before we get into the actual episode itself, let's take a look at the production credits on the Big Finish website. So the senior producer is David Richardson, with the additional themes by Ben Foster. The cover artist, as always, is Lee Binding. He's done a really good job with this release, a very unique and once again gruesome looking cover. The director is Scott Handcock, with music by Blair Mowat. The producer is James Goss, and the script editor Tim Foley, with sound design by Naomi Clark and the additional theme music by Murray Gold, with the executive producers being Nicholas Briggs and Jason Haig-Ellery. Now, it is in fact really great to be able to be taking a look at another Dr. Owen Harper story, because I really do like the releases with his character. Of course, over the past few months I have listened to a number of stories that usually feature Dr. Owen Harper alongside Sergeant Andy Davison as portrayed by Tom Price, and we are also getting a release with that duo next month as well, which is of course entitled Gooseberry, which I'm very much looking forward to listening to that one, because the dynamic with their relationship is brilliant. It's really enjoyable to listen to within the format, and you know you're in for a safe story with lots of rather dark moments, but also a lot of comedic value in there as well. This episode is a little bit more grim because we get to see a story that's focused around Owen Harper and basically him going on a little bit of a field trip. So once again, it kind of follows the same format to quite a number of the Torchwood stories, where basically one member of the team goes off to deal with a certain alien thing that is let loose in Cardiff due to, of course, the rift and things coming through from all different types of space and alien worlds and everything else. And this story is one that most definitely features an alien from another world, and that is Mould. Now, two people that I really want to credit to start off with for this release is in fact the sound design by Naomi Clark and the music by Blair Mowat, because this episode is grim. It's very grim indeed, as I have already mentioned, and I think in particular the sound design is really clever, because this is one of those releases that isn't necessarily a joy to listen to at all, which is not the best way to start off a review, but I mean it in a way that is the most complimentary manner possible for unpleasant and feeling unpleasant, because this episode is meant to feel unpleasant, because we have Owen going into this house which has been infested with this alien mould, and throughout the story's duration the mould decides to build around the house and basically infest as quick as possible and take over, including engulfing human bodies. And we can physically see or hear the mould growing throughout the episode itself. It's rather slimy, it's rather decaying, and as a result the sound design very much presents that in a way that's very atmospheric, but also at the same time I was actually kind of like that throughout this release, because it is uncomfortable to listen to and it very much makes your skin crawl. So yes, thumbs up for the sound design. It's very good, very effective, very atmospheric, and a great way of delivering the rather unpleasant nature of this story. Another thing that I really like about this episode is that it is quite close to home for me, because it's an episode that is set within a house share, and basically we have these students or people who've met each other from the likes of uni, and it is a shared accommodation where these people have needed to move in together in order to save on a little bit of money, and as a result these people don't necessarily know each other very well, and they don't really get along either, and you have lots of different people throughout the story from lots of different walks of life. So for example, you have the character of Ellie, who is basically the fitness fanatic. She goes out running very early in the morning, she eats granola, and she's very much a Instagram influencer-esque character. And for those of us that aren't very productive first thing on a morning, she's very infuriating indeed, and she's excellently presented throughout this story. Next up we have Seren, who's basically using the house as a pause in her life. She's basically dealing with this unpleasant living standard because she's planning on moving on to better things. She's planning on going to South America to have a little bit of a road trip, and as a result this house is never meant to be permanent. She's just dealing with these people for the time being. She's also considerably loud as well, and as a result is a little bit of a nuisance to the other people that she is living with. And then finally we have the character of Nye, who, living in a student accommodation, quite literally right now as I film this review, I live surrounded by many Nyes, and basically they play their music, their very, very cool music at the loudest possible volume, and generally is a nuisance to everyone. Very much a tech-savvy person, however also somebody who keeps to their room quite a lot, and you could quite literally go days without seeing them. And then they're also quite not cleanly either. They don't clean up, they don't discard of things that are quite literally rubbish. So as a result we have this dynamic throughout this episode that again is very human, very natural, seeing these people come together to try and defeat this alien menace whilst also dealing with their own life problems as well. And as we see throughout the episode, the lack of actual personal relationship dynamic that they have. Now moving back onto Owen, as portrayed by Bern Gorman. As always, he does an excellent job. This is one of the many releases that Big Finish have done that have in fact been recorded in lockdown, and as per usual the quality remains unchanged. You can't really tell that this episode has been filmed remotely or recorded remotely. And I think that Bern Gorman does a great job with the script that he has been given. You can definitely tell that he has took each individual scene into consideration, and there's something about him that is very abrupt and he's very stern, but also at the same time, especially when he is interacting with other members of the Torchwood team, he's quite a difficult character to get along with, and as a result he's kind of being put into this situation with these uni students. He doesn't necessarily want to be there, he doesn't want to be with them, and he can't really sympathise with them. However, especially with Seren, she's kind of been burdened on him throughout this episode, and as a result she is almost a companion of Owen, and he needs to act as a carer throughout the episode, and on occasion there is an odd bit of heart creeping out of Owen, and I think that that's something that Big Finish have developed with his character. He's a character that, yes, on the front is very stern and rather hiding of his emotions, however at the same time there's an odd glimmer in there where he's not necessarily as strong as he acts. He's a character that can get quite emotional at times, I think quite insecure as well, and especially in the later half of this story we see a nice bond being formed between him and Seren as they believe that the entire house is basically going to take over and kill everything in close proximity. So it's very challenging for all of the characters involved, and I think that Adam Lamont has done a very good job of creating a gripping, gruesome story, but also at the same time padding out all of the characters. As I've already mentioned throughout this review, we've got the students, all of which from different settings of life, but all of them, you can tell, they've been given time, they've been given thought and consideration as to who this character is and basically what they're going to contribute to the story. So everybody jumps off the page, and it really is a story that springs to life as soon as you start listening to it. The whole concept of the alien mould as well, and basically a pump that has been put through the rift, and they want to turn everything in close proximity of the pump into compost, and that includes all organic life. So it doesn't exactly take an intelligent person to work out who is at risk throughout this story, and it is all the occupants within the house. And we kind of have a commentary on tenants and landlords and land law as well, and we basically have a dodgy landlord and not fixing things. So this house is already in a considerably bad state at the start of the story, and they kind of put the unusual smells and unpleasant nature of the house down to that. However, it turns out an alien mould menace is in fact growing right underneath their feet. That we don't meet the landlord personally throughout this story. I think a summary would be that the mould got to him first, and again that allows for a rather grim scene, and I imagine if this episode was one that was visual, it would be very, very unpleasant to watch, because we have this whole concept of a normal, regular human being transformed into mould and decaying, and literally parts of their body ripping off them essentially and becoming nothing and disintegrating. And I think even the cover art for this release is rather unpleasant to look at as well. It's quite a disturbing story and really realistic to some of the conditions as well that some younger people do have to live with, especially when it is dodgy landlords and in particular students who need to put up with mould growing off the walls, wallpaper hanging off, and gas and electric that is a little bit faulty, and all of that is really used in this story to bring the episode to life. As I mentioned within my previous review of Torchwood Drive, that was a rather unusually positive story, as written by David Llewellyn, where we had Naoko Maureen as Toshiko Sato basically going around Cardiff and she meets a taxi driver called Fauzia. They spark up a very lovely relationship throughout the story, and the conclusion is very feel-good. This episode again is focused around people and interaction and a isolated theme, especially within inside this house, which is something that quite a lot of us have got very used to over the past year. But the ending of the episode isn't feel good at all, and I'm not going to spoil it. It is in fact quite a grim and sad ending, with basically a consequence of the actions throughout the story. It's not necessarily that the person who suffers the consequence deserves it. I think if anything they tried their best with the situation of what they had throughout the episode, and they kind of come out the other side of the story, possibly questioning if death was in fact a better outcome. They kind of still get to keep their life, however not necessarily the life that they wanted. So yes, this episode definitely leaves a sour taste of reality, which is what I quite like about Torchwood. It's quite grim, it's realistic, and it's not all happy and joyful endings, and it's quite depressing at times, and this episode definitely plays to that. In conclusion, for Torchwood Lease of Life, as written by Adam Lamont, featuring Dr. Owen Harper, as portrayed by Bern Gorman, another rather interesting story. I'm not going to say it's a pleasant listen, because it certainly isn't. However, I think it really highlights the strengths of the audio drama format. I think that, as always, the production team have really excelled in bringing this story together. It's very atmospheric, the sound design is beautifully grim and skin-crawling, and also at the same time the characters are excellently written as well. I think that Adam Lamont has done a very good job of bringing the episode to life, accompanied with the production teams. Yes, overall, if you are a fan of Torchwood and if you are a fan of Owen, this episode is one that I certainly recommend. I actually think that this one is quite a standout release. It most certainly impressed me, because I went in not necessarily expecting anything too out of the ordinary, but it delivers an episode that again is an experience, and it's an unpleasant experience, and it kind of reminds me of tropical beach sounds and relaxing seascapes, and that is a story that I absolutely adore, so that is a very high compliment indeed from me. So yes, an episode that's very good, but grim at the same time. So thank you very much for watching this review. I really hope you have enjoyed it. Do of course stay tuned on The Host Productions for brand new Doctor Who content each and every week, as well as of course the continuation of these Big Finish Torchwood reviews. Next month, if I do get the time, I will be taking a look at Gooseberry, featuring Sergeant Andy Davison and Owen Harper once again, so I'm very much looking forward to that release, as well as of course the other Big Finish audio drama reviews that I do every single month. So yes, thanks for watching, have a nice day, and I shall see you all next time. Bye for now.